It is a Tuesday afternoon in Denver, Colorado. Sophia is at the park, 3 feet behind her 8-year-old son, Oliver, as he stands at the base of a large oak tree. He wants to climb it. The lowest branch is 6 feet off the ground. Sophia says, "Let's find a different tree." Oliver has heard this before. The shorter slide, the gentler hill, the safer option. He's 8 years old, and he has never walked to the end of his own block alone. Sophia is not a bad mother. She is an anxious one. And she is not unusual. Not in Denver, not in Chicago, not in most of the United States in 2024. Now imagine a different city. Copenhagen, Denmark. A Tuesday morning. Astrid is 7 years old. She has her backpack on. She says goodbye to her mother at the front door of their apartment. She takes the metro to school. Alone. 22 minutes each way. This is not exceptional in Denmark. It is ordinary. A 2022 survey by the Danish National Center for Social Research found that 74% of Danish children aged 7 and above travel to school, independently. In Norway, that number is 80%. In the United States, the equivalent figure is 11%. Same age, different worlds. And for the last 15 consecutive years, the United Nations Child Wellbeing Report has placed Denmark, Norway, and Finland in the top 3. Positions for childhood well-being across health, relationships, life satisfaction, and academic performance. The United States ranks 26th. This isn't a coincidence of geography or genetics or national wealth. The United States is one of the wealthiest nations in human history. Something else is different. Dr. Peter Gray is a research professor at Boston College. He has spent 50 years studying how children develop through play and independence. His 2023 analysis, published in the Journal of Pediatrics, tracked self-directed play and independent activity in American children from 1955 to 2022. What he found was stark. In 1955, the average American child had 6 hours of unsupervised time per day. By 2022, that number had dropped to under 40 minutes. And over the same period, childhood anxiety diagnoses increased by 400%. Depression rates in adolescents tripled. The sense of what psychologists call personal agency, the belief that your own choices shape your outcomes, dropped to its lowest recorded level. Dr. Gray did not frame this as a parenting failure. He framed it as a cultural one. "We began protecting children from difficulty," he wrote, "and in doing so, we removed the curriculum through which they learned to become capable. Humans." Here is the question Nordic researchers have been asking for decades. Not, is it safe to let children be independent? But, what is the cost of never teaching them that they can be? And the answer from the research is uncomfortable for most Western parents. Because the danger we've been protecting our children from isn't falling off a tree. The danger is reaching adulthood without ever learning that they can handle the fall. In Denmark, there is a pedagogical principle that runs through every government preschool curriculum. It is taught to childcare workers. It is written into the national education framework. It is called Frihed med ansvar, freedom with responsibility. It does not mean unlimited freedom. It does not mean children do whatever they want. It means, at every developmental stage, the child is given a zone of freedom appropriate to their age. And the adult's job is to make that zone as wide as the child's current capacity allows. In Danish, dagplejere, government-subsidized childcare, a 3-year-old is expected to put on their own coat, choose their own outdoor activity, attempt to resolve conflicts with other children before an adult intervenes. Not because Danish children are tougher, because Danish pedagogy understands something about the developing brain that most Western parenting culture has missed. Competence is not a trait, it is a skill. And like every skill, it is built through practice, not through observation, not through instruction, and certainly not through protection. From failure. Dr. Albert Bandura, one of the most cited psychologists in the history of the discipline, called this self-efficacy. His landmark 1977 research established what decades of subsequent studies have confirmed. A child's belief in their own ability to handle challenges is built exclusively through what he called mastery experiences. Moments where they tried, struggled, and succeeded without being rescued. You cannot build self-efficacy by watching someone else succeed. You cannot build it through praise alone. It requires the experience of encountering difficulty and discovering that you are capable of navigating it. This is the first mechanism. The second is what developmental researchers call stress inoculation. Dr. Wendy Mogul, a clinical psychologist who has worked with families for over 30 years, describes what happens when children are consistently shielded from manageable stress. The nervous system never develops a tolerance for it. Moderate difficulty, a hard assignment, a conflict with a friend, a task they're not sure they can complete, triggers a disproportionate stress response. Not because they are weak, because they were never given the opportunity to build the biological resistance that comes from facing small stressors and surviving them. Nordic parenting doesn't create stress on purpose, but it doesn't eliminate it either. It allows children to exist within the manageable discomfort of a world that does not always conform to their preferences, and it trusts that. This experience is building something invisible but essential. The third mechanism is prefrontal cortex development. Executive function, the ability to plan, regulate impulses, anticipate consequences, and adapt, is built through use. Specifically through the experience of making decisions, experiencing the outcomes of those decisions, and recalibrating. When an adult makes every decision for a child, the prefrontal cortex has nothing to practice on. Nordic researchers call the core parenting practice that addresses all three mechanisms the scaffolded retreat. It is not abandonment. The adult does not leave, they step back. Deliberately, systematically, in alignment with the child's growing capacity. In practice, it follows three age-based stages. From age 3 to 4, self-care and small choices. The child dresses themselves, tidies their own space, chooses their own activity during unstructured time. Adults resist the urge to correct, assist, or redirect unless safety is at stake. From age 5 to 6, navigation of familiar spaces. The child moves independently within a defined zone, the playground, a neighbor's house, a known route. They are trusted with small errands within sight. From age 7 onward, extended independence. School routes, public transit in familiar areas, managing portions of their own time, starting and completing projects without adult. Initiation. This is not neglect. It is a systematic, research-backed developmental sequence, built into the Danish and Norwegian educational framework and taught to parents, through national public health programs. Back in Denver, Oliver is still standing at the base of that oak tree. He hasn't moved. Not because he's afraid of the height, because he's waiting, as he always has, for someone to tell him whether it's okay. The long-term data is the most important part of this story. A longitudinal study from the University of Amsterdam followed 500 children from age 4 through 18 across 4 countries, including Norway and the Netherlands. The researchers tracked 2 variables: the degree of age-appropriate independence given by parents and a range of developmental outcomes over time. The findings were consistent. Children who experienced regular, age-appropriate independence showed measurably higher academic self-efficacy at age 12, lower anxiety scores at age 15, and at age 18, the final data point, significantly stronger career self-efficacy. The belief that they could navigate new professional challenges, make decisions under pressure, and recover from setbacks. The researchers were careful to note that independence alone was not the cause. It was independence within a secure relationship, a child who knew their parent was available and also trusted to handle difficulty on their own. The Scandinavian term for this balance is the concept underlying all of Danish parenting education: nærhed og frihed, closeness and freedom, not intention, in partnership. On the other side of the data, the outcomes of high-control, low-independence parenting are equally consistent. Dr. Julie Lythcott-Hames served as Dean of Freshmen at Stanford University for a decade. Her research on the incoming class each year produced findings she describes as alarming. Students who had been heavily managed, whose parents had intervened in every difficulty, solved every problem, and minimized every risk, arrived at Stanford with extraordinary academic records and profound difficulty with the most basic functions of adult life. Calling their own doctor, negotiating a disagreement with a roommate, deciding what to eat for dinner. The skills, she concluded, that we thought we were protecting them to develop had never been built at all. So what can a parent in Denver or Atlanta or Seattle actually do with this? Because the answer is not, put your 7-year-old on the metro and go home. The Nordic model is not about any single practice. It is about a consistent, intentional direction. Here are 3 places to begin. First, identify 3 things you currently do for your child that they could attempt themselves. Pick one. Stop doing it this week. Not forever, just this week. Watch what happens. Second, the zone of proximal independence. Give your child a task slightly beyond what they've done before. Stay nearby. Do not help unless they ask. The moment they succeed, and they will, something shifts in both of you. Third, the failure debrief. When something goes wrong, resist the reflex to fix it. Before you offer a single solution, ask one question. What do you think you'd do differently next time? Then listen. The answer will tell you more about your child's developing mind than any assessment ever could. Sophia tried something the following Saturday. She let Oliver walk to the corner store, 2 blocks. It was the first time he had ever walked anywhere alone. He came back with the wrong brand of bread. He had the change in his fist. He had taken 12 minutes longer than it should have. And he had the biggest smile she had ever seen on his face. She didn't say a word about the bread, because something about the way he walked back through the door told her that what he'd just brought home was worth far more than what she'd sent him for. If you want to understand the science of how the first years of a child's life shape the brain that will carry them through the rest of it, that video is right here. What's one thing you currently do for your child that you think they might be ready to try on their own? Tell me in the comments. I'll reply to every single answer in the first 24 hours.